LegendKeeper boards include features that allow you to use the existing elements of your world as the raw materials. And, like our other lenses, LegendKeeper boards are easy to connect to the other parts of your world. This video is a dense one. We will run through some examples of things you might create with boards, and then we will walk through all of the many features included in the first release. Finally, we will run through some of the pro tips you can use to go even faster. I encourage you to make use of the chapter markers in the video description. Those will help you jump to the parts that are more relevant to you. You can also use them as convenient bookmarks. The feature walkthrough is organized so that innovations specific to LegendKeeper projects are near the beginning. You should note that LegendKeeper boards share many similarities with other whiteboarding apps and vector illustration software. If you are very experienced with that type of thing, I recommend you only watch the section on page cards and the section at the end on pro tips. Let's get started. Before we go into the details of every single tool in boards, I just want to walk you through a few of the things that I created while testing out the feature. This isn't meant to be prescriptive. There are hundreds and thousands of things you could make with boards, but hopefully it'll get the juices flowing. So I have a few example boards here. This first one is a quest flowchart. So you can see I've used page cards to lay down a location and a few characters. Each page card links to a page in the Wiki, which we'll see in the next section. And then I've connected them with these arrows, which I've labeled to sort of give me a sense of how this quest might flow. I've also created a family tree. I was thinking about the Weston family and how they are related. And then as you can see on the sides here, I was able to use the text tool to add some notes about parts of this tree I still need to work out. Boards is great for point crawls. A point crawl is a simplified graphical representation of like a region that you can adventure through, where each of the nodes in the graph is a place, and then each of the lines connecting them is a way you can travel between them. Again, using page cards, this came out looking really nice, and I was able to use the arrow tool to really easily connect them with these different types of lines. Another feature here on the right is a card that actually links to another board. As you can see, Aurelia's rail is itself a board, so I can right click and go to board. And so now I've gone down a level in my point crawl into this railway system in the world, and I've left myself a little bookmark to get back. Again, we'll review board cards in more detail in the next section of the video. Boards, of course, are great as a DM screen. I was able to drop players and monsters here using page cards, and then just copy paste them and change their size to bring them over here into the turn order. A couple simple random tables using the text tool in case I need something there, and then a few small shortcuts in the top left corner. You can imagine you can kind of configure this however you want. And the last thing I want to show is this random scribble. This is kind of using boards as just a whiteboard with players. It's a great place to just have some fun and take some notes while you're running a game. There are plenty of great whiteboarding features in LegendKeeper boards, but what makes them really special is the ability to take parts of your world and use them as the raw materials for creation. And we can do that using page and board cards. These are special types of cards designed specifically for LegendKeeper boards. To drop a page card, select the tool at the far right of the toolbar called Wiki, and then click anywhere on the canvas. This pulls up the familiar creation dialog. From here, you can create a new page, link to an existing wiki page, or create a page from a template. You'll see that as soon as you drop a page, a beautiful visual representation of the page appears. You can change the size by selecting the style panel here on the far right and choosing from small, medium, or large. I find large format is really good for banners or places, like that. The small size condenses the card to its icon in a perfect square shape. You can right-click on a page card to view the page in the flyout menu, and you can right-click to edit the page in context. The Black Basilisk is a legendary monster. If you create a new page, let's call it test new page, that gets dropped with its whatever icon you set for the page. We'll go to the wiki here to see this page was created. There it is, test new page. So you can see that worked. And there's the edits I just made. The color can be changed from the style panel as well, using these options here. Just edit the icon. And there it is. To add a board card, simply drag and drop a link from the sidebar on the left. As you can see, I have a long list of boards here. I'm going to take the hero's journey from the examples I showed earlier, and I'm just going to drag that onto the canvas. I now have a board card. As of now, board cards can only appear as small square icons. What this lets you do is right-click and go straight to the board that it's linked to. This is a very fun way to navigate quickly between boards and link them back and forth. So I'll go back to that board I just made. Now, using boards is a lot of fun, but of course it's much more fun with your friends. Thankfully, like every other feature in LegendKeeper, Boards is designed to sync instantly with other members of your project. I'll show you what I mean. On the left, we have Google Chrome signed in as Adam. And on the right, the black browser is Firefox, and that one is signed in as Pretend Braden. All right, so if I draw something on the left, it will instantly appear to the other member who's signed in the project. And if I draw something on the right, of course, the same thing happens. In addition to the real-time synchronization between project members, Boards also has offline support. This is another core element of every LegendKeeper feature. Let me show you how this works. Right now, if I draw on the right side in green, it appears instantly on the left. But what happens if I turn off Wi-Fi? I'm going to do that now. Okay, Wi-Fi is off, so I now have no internet connection on my laptop. Boards continues to work as you would expect. I can keep drawing, doing all sorts of stuff here. And you'll see it's not synchronizing with the left. LegendKeeper shows an icon in the top right corner to indicate that you're offline. So let's turn this back on now. Okay, so I've re-established my internet connection, and as you can see, after a short delay, it was able to sync with the server and reflect it to my friend in the wide browser. Before we get into the rest of the tools, I should show you how to navigate around a board. The best way to navigate is with the Select tool in position 1 on the toolbar. So with the Select tool activated, you can hold the spacebar and then click and drag. This lets you pan. And if you get too far away, the Back to Content button appears in the toolbar, which you can click to jump back to where the action is. In addition to panning, there are many useful tools for zooming in and out. On the far right side of the toolbar, you can find them. So you can click this one to zoom in and zoom out. You can jump back to 100% zoom with that option. To fit is very useful. This attempts to put every object on the board within the viewport. I really like that one. And to selection jumps to focus on whatever you have selected. You should also know about the hotkeys for zooming. If you hold down Alt and use your scroll wheel, the board will zoom in and out really smoothly, focused on the center of your viewport. So I'll try to get this card in the center and I'll show you that again. That's pretty close. But if you hold Control and use your scroll wheel, it will attempt to zoom in on whatever the mouse is hovered over. This is sort of like a pinch zoom hotkey. Okay, let's talk about the selection tool. This tool lives in slot number 1 in the toolbar. You can press the number 1 or the V key to select it. Once you have that active, you can click on objects to select them, and you can drag them around the canvas. When you have an object selected, you can hover over the edges to change the size like that, or the corners to scale it. This blue circle at the top is a handle that lets you rotate an object. Right now, page cards are not scalable, so you can't do that with page cards, but you can with most shapes. If you want to select a group of things all together, you can simply drag over an area like that to grab them. You can also hold the Shift key while clicking on objects to pick out anything you want to add to a collection, like that. And you can hold the Shift key and click to take things out of the active selection. Okay, if you find there's a group of things that you want to select together repeatedly, you can actually group them together by selecting all of them, then right-clicking and choosing Group. So these 3 Weston family members are now grouped, and you can see this by the dotted line that appears when I hover over this area. And I only need to click once to get all 3 of them together. You can also right-click on the grouped area and choose to ungroup objects. So they're back to being their own separate actors now. The other useful feature when selecting objects and moving them around is the lock feature. If I right-click and choose Lock, these 3 objects are now not able to move. It's a little hard to see in the video, but I am trying to click and drag these, and it's just not happening. To get access to the item, you can double click when it's locked, and that will let you configure it and unlock it. LegendKeeper boards offer you a few ways to draw shapes and lines and to style them to your tastes. We'll start with the Draw tool, which is in slot number 2. This lets you just do some free form drawing. So you can do all sorts of beautiful art. This square-shaped icon is the Shapes panel, and it actually contains 3 tools hidden within. These take up slots 4, 5, and 6, and these are the rectangle, ellipse, and line drawing tools. So a rectangle lets you click and drag to draw a rectangle. To draw a perfect square, you can hold the Shift key while you drag. And what that does is lock the aspect ratio so that it always scales up in a 1:1 ratio. It's the same principle for the ellipses. If you just drag around, you can create these lovely sort of oval shapes. But if you need a perfect circle, hold the Shift key while you drag, and it will lock that aspect ratio. And then finally there's the Line tool, which just lets you draw a perfectly straight line between 2 points. All of these shapes are stylable using the Style panel, which is on the right side here. You can choose the color from our LegendKeeper palette. You can do this for multiple things at the same time. You can fill by selecting the bottom option, which fills the shape with a lighter shade of the selected color. And you can also set the stroke style and width using the stroke section. This gives you the ability to create dotted lines, which can be quite useful. And finally, there's a size option, which will make the strokes thicker or thinner. Okay, now we'll move on to the Arrow tool in slot number 7. I'm sure this is going to be a popular one. It is perfect for connecting objects on a board, especially useful for things like flowcharts or family trees or any kind of graph. So you'll see here on my board I have 4 shapes, 3 squares, and a page card dropped. So if I select the Arrow tool, I can click and drag between any 2 shapes, and it will link those shapes together. The arrowhead appears in the direction that I drag. So now, these are locked together, so if I move the square on the left, the arrow follows it, and likewise for the other ones. Okay, there's a few other things to show you. When you have an arrow selected, you can double click the circles at the ends. That hides or reveals the arrowhead. So this can let you create a 2-way arrow, or 1-way, or no ways, just like that. You can click and drag the middle circle to make the arrow bend, which can be quite interesting. You can also detach and reattach. I'm doing all of this with the Select tool, as you would expect. And finally, when you're selecting an arrow, you can double click in the middle to set a label. And that label will appear in the middle of the line between the two shapes, and it will follow it as you move it. If you're hoping to type things down on a board, you can use the text tool in position 8 or the sticky tool in position 9. With the text tool selected, you can click on the board and start typing. You can scale text the same as you scale any shape in boards. And you can style the color using the style panel. The sticky tool in position 9 is basically post-it notes. So you can click to drop one, you can drop a whole bunch, just like that. Hello. And post-it notes, though they cannot be scaled, similar to page cards, you can color them with the style panel. Great way to leave notes for yourself. If you're anything like me, once you get a bunch of things out onto a board, you're going to want to tidy things up. There are many ways to do this with LegendKeeper boards, and the first I'll show you is the grid. Press Command, Shift, and G to activate the grid. Once it's visible, anything you drag snaps into the grid's positions. So this lets you easily align objects by feel. But you don't have to use the grid to align objects. There are a collection of alignment tools inside this menu here on the left side of the toolbar. They're in this bottom section underneath the horizontal divider. You can also find them by right-clicking and hovering over alignment. This will let you do things such as align all of the objects by their bottom edge, like that. You could align them by their center axis in a vertical layout, like that. And many other options. You should definitely experiment with that. The other important concept in this menu is distribution. That's these final two options at the far right. Once you have at least 3 things selected, those will appear. Distribution lets you position things in equal distance from each other. I find a common scenario is the one we're looking at right now. I have a row of things and I want them to be equidistant and in a clean line. So to accomplish that, I would select all of them, then align by a center axis, and finally distribute them. You can also hold the Command key while dragging an item to make these red alignment markers appear. This is yet another way to sort of do a quick visual alignment when you're working freely in boards. It's hard to see in the video, but when you are holding the Command key to activate these red lines, the objects also snap into position, which makes it a little easier to get the right setup. There are also the move options. As you can see here, I have a stack of page cards. When I select an item, I can right-click and go to Move, and this lets me position the card within the stack. So moving it forward brings it up, as you would expect, and backward brings it back down. Of course, you can go all the way to the back of the stack to drop it right to the bottom, or all the way to the front. The tools for movement, alignment, and distribution are all easily available when you right-click on objects. You can also find them in the options on the far left side of the toolbar here. As you can see, there are the alignment tools, and these arrows are controlling movement. This dot menu at the far left side of the toolbar holds a few other interesting options, which we can quickly go over now. On the far left at the top is duplicate. You just click that and you'll get an instant copy of something. Next to it is rotate, and that rotates objects counterclockwise. Pretty straightforward. Okay. The third option at the top is lock, which we covered earlier. This now prevents me from dragging this shape in any direction. And I can double click it to select it if I need to unlock it. This one's interesting. What this does is lock the aspect ratio. So usually shapes, when you drag the corners, are somewhat fluid as to the aspect ratios. But if you turn on this lock, you'll see this tiny dashed line appear, and it will now be impossible to break the aspect ratio when you drag this shape. On the far right side at the top is group, which you can click to group objects. You'll see the group is outlined by this dashed line, just like that. And then finally there's this sort of angle shaped thing with the dotted line, and this resets the angle after you've rotated something. Just like that. Thank you so much for checking out LegendKeeper boards. We at LegendKeeper are super excited to see all the stuff you're going to make with them. To finish today's video, I'm going to run through some of my pro tips that will speed up your workflows. Thanks for watching. Okay, the first thing is to use Command D to duplicate anything on a board. This can come in really handy. But even better than that is holding the Alt key. If you hold Alt when you drag something, you'll get a copy of it. Even better still than that is holding the Shift key while you Alt drag. This locks the duplicate shape in line with the one that it just left behind. So you can make a row, like a perfectly straight row, really quickly, like that. If you hold Shift when you rotate something, it will go from a fluid rotate to a snapped rotation. And that makes it really easy to keep things clean and get like clean 45-degree angles like that. We've mentioned this one before, but I really want to say it again. If you hold Alt or Control while scrolling with the scroll wheel, you'll be able to zoom in and out of a board really easily. And finally, the last pro tip is to remember that you can always right-click on things to find all sorts of goodies in the context menu.